Welcome, welcome, welcome. It's time once again for the Midnight Skeptic to haunt all of your listening dreams. Okay, the Midnight Skeptic. I'm recording this on June 6th, but it won't be broadcast on online and locally on FM radio until this coming Sunday at 9 p.m., the usual time, Pacific Standard Time, on KPCA.LP worldwide and locally at 103.3 FM. By locally, I mean Sonoma County. And I will be on YouTube as soon as I get through downloading this onto YouTube. As always, in my own small way, my goal is to rid this country of all MAGA heads and Republicans one broadcast at a time. There's no longer any question that the Republican Party is a cult of the orange sociopathic bloat bag. Our government, our justice system, and our socioeconomic system are all in danger from this cult. Please, listeners and my YouTube viewers, this November, vote out all Republicans, GOP MAGA heads, and other conservatives. Please. Okay, now that I'm done with that, here comes my shout outs. I need a sip because my throat is beginning to crackle. That was grape juice, by the way. Shout outs. Project Censored. Mickey Huff, Nolan Higdon, and Andy Lee Roth are the three dudes behind Project Censored. Go to their website and sign up for their newsletter. And if you have a mind to, buy their current book, The State of the Free Press, in 2023. John Crowley at Aquas Cafe. He has established quite a community of artists, poets, and nonprofit organizations at his Aquas Cafe down in the warehouse area of Petaluma. There's a name for it. I think it's on H and 2nd Street. Okay, they serve good light fare, breakfast, lunch, and early dinner. Okay, and Tom Gaffey at the Phoenix Theater, who is sort of the godfather of all the alternative teens. Ralph Scott, shout out. Nariman, I hope you're enjoying your extended vacation in Europe. Art Kuznets and Rabbi Ted Feldman of the B'nai Israel Temple here. Rabbi Ted is retired now, but is a nice guy. I met him on a number of occasions when I went down to B'nai Israel for special events with my late wife. She passed away in 2013. She was a member of the B'nai Israel. She was Jewish. I am not, but I went with her, and there were some interesting discussions. Ted Feldman called me his favorite pagan. I take that as the compliment in which it was intended. Okay. All right. More locally. Tim Conrad, a photographer extraordinaire. Tom and Nancy Throw, Kevin and Lori, Dave and Rosita Takach in Sacramento. Rich and Kathy Berger in Sebastopol. Dennis and Megan in Tiburon. Yvonne and Rick in San Francisco. They are also over in Europe right now, enjoying a well-earned vacation. See you guys when you get back. Stan and Kathy in Pacifica. I hope Kathy is doing okay. And Stan, it was really good to see you and talk with you recently. And he had some good suggestions about how this show could be improved. Strange as it may seem, there are ways that this show can be improved. Aunt Jackie and her two daughters, Samantha and Melanie. She's down in L.A. My brother Brandon and Mina in the Santan Valley area of Arizona. And their daughter, my niece, Andrea, she's a nurse at a hospital down in the Santan Valley area. Karina Hilliard, the animal control officer in Patagonia, Arizona. I've given her the nickname the Snake Lady because that's her specialty, is removing snakes from people's houses. Okay. Arkansas, Shannon Reed. Florida, Nelson and Alice. Amelia Beamer in Florida. Check her out on YouTube. Go to Locus, Locus magazine, and you'll get her explaining which books they will be reviewing this month, Locus magazine, in the 3 genres: science fiction, horror, and fantasy. Okay, Dr. Dave Rubin in Raleigh-Durham, the world's greatest pulmonary doctor. He is retired, and you can catch his artwork on David Rubin Painting. I think it's .com, but I think he's in Chicago now, showing his work at the Lost Artists Collective. Okay, further up the coast, Geraldine Goldfinger on Long Island. And back on the west coast here, the Sonora Crowd. Robert Finnegan, Bob and Sandy Fisher, and their 2 offspring, Brad and Martha, Darrell Larson, Judy May, Kathy Francis, Lynn Quayle, and up the highway a ways, up in Twain Hart, John Gleason and his 2 daughters, Tiffany and Jennifer. And now, all the way down in Mexico City, Rosamalia Lopez Negrete. I need a sip. Okay, the shout-outs and the intro only took, about 10 minutes. You are listening to KPCA LP, Petaluma, California, at 103.3 FM and worldwide at www.kpca.fm. And this is the Midnight Skeptic. The views of the Midnight Skeptic are not, repeat, not necessarily the views of KPCA or any of its affiliates. Okay, honestly, I don't remember whether I played my play-in music in the introductory of this show. Oh well. Okay, good news from a fellow skeptic, Dr. Jen Gunter, MD. She's an OBGYN with Kaiser Permanente here in San Francisco, which happens to be my health plan. And she writes an online newsletter, I think monthly. It's called The Vagenda. Check it out. Go to that website and subscribe to her newsletter. Lots and lots of good information about medical issues pertaining to women mostly. She wrote a book called The Vagina Bible, which I have a copy of, and a signed copy because I went to a review, a talk about the book down the highway a ways at the Buck Institute. They study aging issues, okay? But she was there giving a talk, and I had her sign my book. Okay, in the latest Vagenda, she discusses supplements, which are vitamins, minerals, probiotics, vaginal products, are all under-regulated. The supplement industry isn't going to adequately inform consumers of risk, so she stepped up. Somebody has to do it, so she's doing it. Relay tampon, thalidomide, and the Dalcon shield are just 3 examples of understudied medical things pertaining to women. It's important not to confuse, quote unquote, cutting edge with inadequately studied things for the benefit of capitalism, because these makers of supplements and products for women, I believe, don't want them to be studied very closely because there are risks to everything. And she, Dr. Jen Gunter, will point them out to you. Please go to her website and subscribe to The Vagenda, and you'll be wiser for having done that. Okay, today is the 80th anniversary of D-Day. President Biden is going over there, along with a lot of 100-year-old, more or less, veterans who took part in it. And I have a confession to make. I'm glad that we're kind of closer to putting World War II in our rear view mirror and not have it affect our current situation so much. The Holocaust is another thing that, as horrible as it was, I kind of want humanity to progress beyond it. And start in improving the lives of everybody here on earth, which incidentally, in this country, in fact, would involve voting out all Republicans. Okay, we don't need them. They are just another hate group as far as I'm concerned. Okay, horrible historical news. I talked about the residential schools for Indian children up in Canada. Okay, that was about a year ago. I did a couple of shows on it and how horrible they were, because mainly they were run by the Catholic Church and a few other religious denominations. But, and they had unmarked graves, which set some investigators onto these sites to find out what really happened to these kids, these poor Native American kids. There was a lot of sexual molestation by priests, of course, and there were abortions performed in these schools when the priests got these young Indian girls pregnant. Now comes a Washington Post story. It's a well-researched article about the U.S., our country, Indian children's boarding schools. At least 122 priests and Catholic lay adults were later accused of sexually abusing Native children from 1819 to 1969. 1969 is when they started to be closed down. That wasn't all that long ago. These boarding schools were run mostly by Catholics. And the purpose was to strip these kids of their indigenous identity. In other words, cultural genocide. By 1900, 1 out of 5 kids were in a boarding school. 1 out of 5 kids of Native American heritage. They were forced away from their parents, kidnapped, really, and put in these boarding schools, and away from their families, and the psychological harm done to these Native American children cannot be measured adequately. Okay, new topic. A clarification. The Israeli-Gaza conflict and the student protesters here in this country and, over the whole world too, crying, "End Israel's apartheid." Okay, yes, it is a form of apartheid, and Israel has essentially occupied the West Bank, and but apartheid. I have a bigger gripe with Arab and Muslim apartheid, and that is women. Why don't these student protesters protest the much worse apartheid that exists in Muslim countries and in areas of Orthodox Jewish settlements? What I'm referring to is the keeping of women as second-class citizens. Women being the property of their husbands, women forced to hide themselves in burqas when going out. In Iran, a Shia Muslim country, women have rebelled against even being required to cover their hair with a hijab, leaving only their face visible. Okay, here's a quote right out of the Quran. Quote, "O Prophet, ask your wives, daughters, and believing women to draw their cloaks over their bodies. In this way, it is more likely that they will be recognized as virtuous and not be harassed. And Allah is all-forgiving, most merciful." And that comes from the Surah Al-Azab. I think I'm pronouncing it correctly, but that's a book or a chapter out of the Quran. And it's a book or chapter 33:59. And here's a quote, and I'm trying to remember exactly how it goes. It's not in my notes, but the Ayatollah Khomeini, way back in the Islamic Revolution that ousted the Pahlavi, I forget what his actual the Shah. Okay, shortly after Ayatollah Khomeini came to power, he said this: "The sight of a woman's hair is a dagger pointed at the fundamentals of Islam." Okay, I think I'm botching that quote, but that essentially is what he said. What does that tell you about Muslim men? They can't control themselves if they see a woman without a hijab and her hair, long hair flowing. One of the things that the women did when they were rebelling relatively recently there in Iran was to cut their hair short. I guess that's against the Islamic religion in some way. But what really set off the women's rebellion in Iran was the morality police. Arrested this one young woman, I think she was 22 years old, and I'm riffing now, but I forgot her name. But she died in police custody, and that's what really set off a serious rebellion with Iranian women burning their hijabs and burqas and cutting their hair. And women in the Islamic religion are considered to be second-class citizens and property of their husbands. And they claim, the religious leaders claim, women don't claim this, but the religious leaders claim that it protects women, it honors them, it keeps them virtuous. What does that say about Islamic men if they see a woman without her burqa? Oh, I get to molest her. Sex is, and I'm not saying that it's only the Islamic faith. In fact, there are other religions that, to some degree, have their women wearing a head covering. Jewish, some sects of Christianity, and some sects of Hinduism. I have said on this show, and ad nauseum, you're probably thinking right now, that all religions are misogynistic, and women are not honored or protected by requirements to cover themselves or keep themselves out of sight of men. Okay, I was riffing. If you couldn't tell. Okay. Bad news. This is a short one. Senate Republicans yesterday blocked a bill to make contraception a federal right. GOP anti-women's right politicians strike again. I was just riffing on how Muslim men, and the religious leaders are all men, how they treat women as second-class citizens. Republicans treat women as second-class citizens. And if you call them on it, they will say, well, we have a few women in our party, and in fact, a few that have been elected to the House of Representatives and the Senate. Those are just toadies and brainwashed. Are you telling me that Marjorie Taylor Greene is a woman that you're proud to have in the Republican Party? Really? Seriously? New sip. Okay. Oh, bad, but unsurprisingly bad news. The Colorado GOP has called for burning rainbow flags. In a mass email, the GOP states, God hates pride and calls the LGBTQ community godless groomers. That's in their mass emailing to Republicans. Bad news. New topic. Bad news. Billions in U.S. taxpayer dollars are being used for tuition at religious schools. The rapid expansion of the state voucher programs follows court decisions that have eroded the separation between church and state. School vouchers can be used at almost any private school, but the vast majority of the money goes to religious schools. Ed Choice, capital ED, capital CHOICE, is a website of a pro-voucher group. Most of the religious schools getting voucher money are Catholic schools, and almost all in GOP-run states. Okay, Catholic schools, a little side note here, were the biggest money winners. Okay, bad news. I promise you, I'm going to have some good news on the next page here. Bad news. On last week's shows, I ranted about PFAS and PFOS. And off the top of my head, I can't remember what those stand for perfluoro. I don't know. They're chemicals, and they are forever chemicals. They do not break down in nature, and they are being found in everything and everywhere. Well, in my science alert newsletter that I get on my computer here was an article, quote, PFAS, how to reduce your exposure to potentially toxic forever chemicals. I thought, well, they don't joke around, but I took it as a joke. You can't avoid them. And you can't reduce your exposure to them. There are over 15,000 different PFAS chemicals, but each has at least 2 carbon-fluorine bonds. Now, I'm not a chemist. This is directly from the article. I know what a bond is, and some bonds are easier to break down than others. This bond, a carbon-fluorine bond, is what makes the PFOS and PFAS forever chemicals. They don't break very easily. So when these chemicals end up out in nature, the normal, sunshine and rain and the little organisms in the soil can't break these carbon-fluorine bonds. So that's why they are called forever chemicals. Okay, here's a way to reduce your exposure to PFOS or PFAS. Just don't drink water. You don't use stain-resistant wearing apparel or outdoor coverings for your outdoor furniture. Don't use stain-resistant cloth. Don't use non-stick pans, and on and on and on. PFOS and PFAS are just everywhere and in everything, including our blood. We can't get away from it. I'm going to have a little bit of a article about the 3M chemist that discovered this, and how the 3M executives decided to do nothing about it. Okay. Whew. A deep breath and a sip. Good news. Whew. Finally, some good news. Congratulations to Mexico's newly elected female president, Claudia Sheinbaum, PhD. She is a Nobel Peace Prize winner and scientist who has worked at the Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory here in California, right across the bay from us. She contributed to the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change in 2007. Her main interests are energy conservation, and sustainable development. It will be interesting to see how she deals with Mexico's problems: the violent cartels, immigration from Central America, and Mexico City running out of water, literally. Um, their reservoirs are running dry. And Bogota, Colombia is also beginning to run dry. I talked about this, I think, in last week's or the week before story. The mayor of Bogota is encouraging people to leave for the weekend and for families to take showers together. Well, that's a good idea. Okay. A fan of the Midnight Skeptic, who shall remain nameless, but they're down in Mexico. They didn't agree with my congratulating Claudia Steinbaum on being elected president. And she was called by them a communist. Okay. Of course, the Midnight Skeptic corrected the person, but admitting a leftward lean to Claudia Sheinbaum and her political party. Claudia, the new president, is way, way too educated, and she's just not a communist. Well, I answered the person who kind of chided me for congratulating her, claiming that she was a communist. I think it was the right-wing party down in Mexico, and the name of that party escapes me right now. But I think their propaganda kind of sunk into this person who called Claudia Sheinbaum a communist. I don't know, that person is not serious. She just sounds like a GOP Republican up here in this country. Anybody they disagree with, they just call them either a communist or a socialist. I'm kind of a closet socialist, a democratic socialist, to be specific, like Bernie Sanders and AOC. Okay. Deep breath. Bad news. Republicans, all Republicans, not just MAGA heads, are saying very openly now that they are out for revenge and retribution against Democrats. If they win in the 2024 election, oh man, what a dystopia. They are saying that they will use any means necessary to put Democrats on trial and in jail for any charge that they can come up with. House Speaker Mike Johnson has completely gone over to the dark side, to the orange sociopathic bloat bag cult. I don't know. When he first got elected Speaker of the House, I kind of had hopes that he would be a semi-minch, a somewhat good guy that just wanted to run the House and get things passed. No longer. He is every bit a MAGA head as Jim Jordan is, and that's not a compliment. Okay. Good news. Whew. I need more good news in this rant. Good news from Montana. Democrat Ryan Busse, capital B-U-S-S-E, who is pro-choice, who is a Democrat, is running for governor as an unapologetic progressive and is taking the gloves off. Good. The Democrats should start doing that. He, as a former executive with a gun manufacturer, wrote the book Gunfight: My Battle Against the Industry That Radicalized America. I would recommend that you run out and get this book. He was, I forget which gun manufacturing company he was an executive of, but he saw the light, got out of it, and now works to end gun violence in this country. His two sons, Badge and Lander, were part of the 2023 lawsuit Held versus Montana, trying to sue the state for not having in their constitution the words responsible for maintaining a livable environment, clean air, clean water, and a nice place for kids to grow up in. They're trying to sue to get this inserted into the Montana Constitution. I wish them luck. Their first court appearance, they won. Now, of course, mainly the oil and gas companies are protesting and oh God, I'm having a brain freeze on the right word. Shoving it up the court chain to a higher court, trying to get it reviewed. Okay, like the orange sociopathic bloat bag is doing. Okay, remember, Held, Held versus Montana. I wish them a lot of luck. Historical fact. The Arabs used to refer to the Moors, the Arabs from North Africa who went over into Spain and ruled it for a number of centuries. The Arabs used to refer to the Moorish expulsion from Spain in 1492 as the Nakba, Nakba. But the real Nakba, the existential disaster that destroyed Arab civilization, occurred in 1258 when the Mongol horde utterly decimated the glittering Arab civilization centered in Baghdad. The Nakba in 1948, with the creation of Israel, was bad, but all of this has to be put into context. The real Nakba was Arabs getting wiped out by the Mongol horde. Okay. Brave worker good news. Chris Hansen, capital Hansen, she was a 3M chemist, and she showed her executive bosses the results of her testing of human blood for chemical contamination. Fluorochemicals turned up in alarming levels. Hansen had recently written a doctoral dissertation about microparticles in the atmosphere. Using a mass spectrometer, she detected PFOS chemicals in blood samples from random outside 3M people. The 3M workers, they were written off by 3M executives as, well, they're going to get it by working for us. There's nothing we can do about it. But they were surprised to see blood samples taken from outside the 3M family tested and found that PFOS chemicals were in their blood too. She showed her results to her boss. And it turns out that 2 decades before her checking the blood, now this was in the early 90s, 2 decades before that, 3M did tests on animals for their blood and found that, yes, their PFOS chemicals were found in animal blood. So this was not a surprise. But they did the thing that executives do, business executives, not normal people. Okay, they switched her studies to other departments and ignored her findings. 3M. It can take its place alongside the evil oil and gas industry as capitalists who are concerned more about profits than they are about doing good on this planet. Good news. In the 2022-2023 school year, California became the first state to provide free school meals to any child, regardless of whether they were eligible for the free or reduced price meals as defined by the federal government. Since then, 7 other states have passed similar policies. Maine, Massachusetts, Nevada, and Vermont lead the way. Plus, Colorado, Minnesota, Michigan, and New Mexico. Do you see a pattern here? All Democratic Party-run blue states. Republicans would rather die than give free anything to anyone. Universal free meals reduces paperwork and investigating families that Republicans would suspect of gaming the system. Kids need food in their stomachs at the start of the day for optimal learning. 17% of children in California face food insecurity. Universal free meals reduces the stigma around free meals. Feed all our children. Vote out Republicans. I tell you, Republicans are the meanest and the cruelest politicians on earth, not just this country. There aren't any Republicans in other countries. I think they should thank their lucky charms for not having Republicans as a part of their government. Good news. I'm ending this rant with a bunch of good news. Good news. California is growing. California grew by 67,000 people last year, and California now has more Fortune 500 companies than New York and Texas. GOP red states had been crowing and making fun of California, that people were fleeing the state because of progressives. It's progressive values. People are leaving. Well, we're gaining population now. These things run in cycles. I don't think Republicans understand the meaning of the word cycles. Okay, real quickie good news. Steve Bannon, that unshaven lout, the icky advisor to the orange sociopathic bloat bag, has to report to prison by July 1st for contempt of Congress. He refused to come testify before the House committee investigating the January 6th insurrection. They wanted his testimony. Well, he never showed up, and they put out an arrest warrant, I guess, or whatever it is they put out. Anyway, he was found guilty on the federal charge, and of course, the orange sociopathic bloat bag pardoned him. But now there's a new charge, and I'm not quite up on what it is. But he was found guilty of that, and that what he has to report to prison on July 1st for. Okay, Steve Bannon, what a junior bloat bag. Okay, good news to end the program. Salem Media Group, they're the ones that made the 2000 Mules fake documentary about how the 2020 election was stolen. They issued an apology and halted distribution of it and removed it from its platform, both the book and the film. 2000 Mules is what most of the MAGA heads relied upon to prove, unquote, that the election was stolen. Do you think for a moment that if the 2004 election goes to Joe Biden, that the orange sociopathic bloat bag won't claim that it was rigged, it was stolen, and his minions in Congress and the House of Representatives will take up the cause of getting the orange sociopathic bloat bag back into the White House? I don't know. This country is in a state of disrepair, and we need to get out there and vote and not let the orange sociopathic bloat bag anywhere near the White House again. Okay, I'm a little early. I've only been at it for 54 minutes, not my full 58, but here is my play out music. You have been listening to The Midnight Skeptic on KPCA LP, Petaluma, California, and we're at 103.3 on the FM dial and worldwide at www.kpca.fm. Support community radio at patreon.com/Petaluma Community Access. And remember, think critically, think logically, but live joyously, and most importantly, pet your cats. I can't emphasize this enough, how important it is, if you are lucky enough to have a cat, to pet your cat. It's very calming, and in this time of life in the United States where we are really in danger from Republicans, you need to pet your cat more than ever. And if you got a few bucks lying around that you want to donate to something, go on Patreon and donate it to Petaluma Community Access. I and Rob Tomaszewski, the station manager, will be quite appreciative. And I'll be doing this again next week, and I'm going to keep doing it until I get it right. I did 100 shows just on the radio, and most of them from down at the station, until I started downloading these things on YouTube. Well, that first group of non-YouTube shows, plus the YouTube shows, it's all been about 7 years. And it's been fun. And I do this, like I say, to hopefully rid this country of Republicans. But also it gets my frustrations out, and it helps calm me down. You know, I don't see myself as an angry, anti-orange sociopathic bloat bag, although I am, type of guy. I maintain my sense of humor. Okay, that's it for this week.